You Booked It, episode 33. Hey, entertainers and performers of the world. I'm your host, Dane Reese, and welcome to You Booked It, where I chat with inspiring entertainers 7 days a week. By digging into their journey, we're going to discover everything you need to do to be a successful entertainer. You know, because training usually skips that part about how to actually make your skills work for you in the real world. Fellow entertainers, my drive here at You Booked It is to share the inspiring and incredible journeys of successful entertainers. We are here to support your journey. So go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join the You Booked It email community where we dig deep into truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you book that next audition, submission, or gig. If you enjoy this free podcast, please show your support and search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app where you can subscribe so you don't miss an episode, leave a rating and review. And to show our appreciation for your, fingers crossed, 5-star rating and review, I will give you a shout out on an upcoming episode. And now, let's do this. Alrighty, let's get started. I am excited to introduce my guest today, Hannah Jane McMurray. Are you ready for this, Hannah?
I'm so ready.
All right. Hannah is a New York actress born and raised in Los Angeles. She holds degrees from both the Boston Conservatory in Musical Theater and from LAMDA, the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, in Shakespeare and classical acting. In addition to stage, TV, and film, Hannah Jane is a sought-after voiceover and commercial actress and has worked on over 70 spots. She believes in learning something new every day and is an avid history buff and science enthusiast who loves bad jokes. Hannah, that is a quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, fill in the gaps, who you are, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, that was the basic outline. I started out in musical theater and started pursuing that right away, right after graduation in New York. But since then, I've really sort of spread my wings out to a lot of other aspects in the industry. Piecemealing my career together, as it were, started to say yes to a lot more, a lot of things that were sort of outside of my initial goal, like voiceovers and commercials, things like that, that have really sort of rounded out my career. And I'm kind of happy with that. I feel like it's a patchwork of a professional career, I suppose.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let's move on to the next section here. And I am a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote you'd like to share with everyone?
Can I do two favorite quotes?
Absolutely.
Okay. So one favorite quote that was actually sort of passed down to me by my mother is an Emma Goldman quote that says, "I would rather have roses on my table than diamonds on my neck." And I just love that quote in its simplicity, and it sort of like reminds me about the simpler things in life. I've never been one for sort of glitz and glamour, and just really gotten down to it reminds me what's really important in life. And so I like to carry that with me through my day-to-day, and especially when I'm sort of trying to make decisions. And oftentimes in the industry, your decisions are based off of, is this something you love to do, or is this something that you'll get paid to do? And oftentimes you don't get to do something that fills both those things. So that's a quote I love. The other quote that I guess we can call it a quote, but it's something that's sort of helping me get by the day-to-day in this very surreal time that we're living in right now. And I don't actually know who coined this phrase first, but I know it's been floating around the zeitgeist for a while now, is to do the next right thing. And that, I feel like, has been like, I don't know where I'm going to be 6 months from now. I don't even know where I'm going to be 3 weeks from now, but I can sort of figure out where I'm going to be tomorrow. So it's been
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, the last 3 months have been just trying to keep up with this ever changing landscape. The rules, the laws change daily almost, or they certainly were even hourly in the beginning of all this. And just trying to make the best decisions with the information we have is crazy.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right, well, let's move on to this section. And Hannah, of course, you are an entertainer. I am an entertainer. And I think you'd agree that the entertainment industry is one of the most subjective, brutally honest, personally emotional industries either of us have probably experienced. And you know as well as I that to create and to have a successful career in this industry, like you're having now, takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, of course, yeah, there is an outrageous amount of fun and excitement being an entertainer, there are also our fair share of obstacles, challenges, and failures we are inevitably going to experience, and we're going to have to learn how to move forward through if we have any hopes of continuing to do this professionally. Tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced in your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
Yeah. This question. I actually had I had a few instances that sort of felt very beyond my control that have really helped guide and shape my career. The first was actually something that I went through while I was at school, while I was at undergrad, which is when I ended up having a knee surgery that pretty much was the end of any chance of me having a really full dance career. And unfortunately, as you know, knees are pretty vital to a dancer's body, and so that was sort of something that I really had to grapple with as far as which direction my career was going to move in. I sort of, as I got older, my knees sort of got worse, and I realized, okay, I really have to move the focus from like going to these dance calls and sort of like making it to almost the end, but like not quite getting there, to being like, you know what, I think I have to sort of embrace the reality that this isn't where I'm going to shine. And it's led me down some interesting paths. Because of it, I now am a practicing aerialist, which has been
Cool.
such a gift. Yeah, because it's sort of like dancing and strength, without, well, with gravity, obviously, but without the impact of being on the ground. So that has been a really unexpected turn. I also, as a singer, ended up, I actually had a couple vocal surgeries, not because of any bad technique or anything like that. I'm always quick to say,
Yeah.
but they really stunted my singing career right in the middle of when I felt like I was gaining momentum as a singer. So that was something that I really had to sit with and decide, am I going to look at these like precious years as something that I will never get back? How will I, how I would recover from these surgeries was something that was sort of unknown. And that really inspired me to sort of focus a lot on TV and film, which was something that, we'd never studied in undergrad. And something that I realized I really, really loved doing. And sometimes I think I'm better at it than other things. So it was actually again, a really great gift that sort of like both those things I think really guided me to something that I really wanted to do, sort of to hyper focus my studies and my training and everything that I was going after. So yeah, I literally had to learn how to walk again and talk again and figure out how to do all the rest of it. And it also just made me realize that at that point, there's kind of no turning back. You have to sort of be like, well, I'm in it. So you got to keep moving forward and find the good with the bad, I guess. So that's what I tried to do.
Absolutely. And those are two massive challenges that you had to get through. And I love that you've pivoted and transitioned and found what you are still passionate about or found new passions that might even be stronger, like you said, than what you initially even thought you would make out of a career in this industry. And that's something I
Yeah.
love about the entertainment industry as a whole is that when we first go into it, at least this is my experience, that I knew that Broadway existed, obviously. I knew that LA and film and TV existed, But when I really started concentrating on the training side of it, it was the live theater, the musical theater side of things, and you get really focused and almost closed-minded about what else could possibly be out there. And
Hmm.
once you get into that real world, you really start seeing how expansive this industry can be. And there's so many places for us to find where our creativity and our art can flourish.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially when we're young, it's almost like out of necessity, it takes all of our time to focus on training toward this very, very specific thing. There are so many aspects of musical theater that need our attention in these very like formative years that are college. That yeah, I mean, I was totally blind to like all these other things, or I just made the decision early on. I had made the decision like I'm not going to do TV. I'm not going to do commercials. I'm just going to focus all my energy on this one thing. And when you find that that's no longer an option, as I did, suddenly it was like out of necessity, but I'm so grateful for it. It was out of necessity that I had to look into other aspects of this, and I'm so grateful.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on to this next section now to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment. That one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be an entertainer for a living. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing as an entertainer. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is an interesting question, I think, because I was one of those kids who always knew that she wanted to be an actor or a performer in some way. There was never doubt in my mind that this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I often wish that there was something else that I wanted to do. I wish I wanted to be a lawyer. But yeah, so I think there was one, well, I guess if my dad actually always mentions this like one specific moment where he felt like he knew I had that I was serious about it. And I think it was a very specific production of Cabaret that I did when I was 15 years old, I think. And I fought and begged, and I ended up playing the MC, which was really bizarre for a 15-year-old girl. And I just
Yeah.
did my best Alan Cumming impression, and I like loved it. And I think I really felt the freedom of transforming into something that was so outside myself. And my dad, like, I hadn't even thought about that, but my dad mentioned that to me recently about how, like, that was the performance where he was like, oh, she's not joking. Like,
Yeah, she's got the bug and she's doing it.
this is forever. Yeah. So, and then from that point on, I think it was just really like uh, all or nothing, just sort of how I live.
Absolutely. Well, let's piggyback on that question and let's talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, the auditions and callbacks, if those happen to be part of it. What was going on in your life? And what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment?
You know, I think I might be sort of, well, maybe it's not surprising, but I think my number one booked it moment was the day that I found out that I was going on tour with Peter Pan 360. And I think it's because, it wasn't even necessarily, my biggest job to date or the best or anything like that, but I just felt it was one of these rare instances where I felt this like perfect melding of really loving the project. Like I just so badly wanted to work on this piece. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes we want the job because it pays really well, or we want the job because it would be an amazing credit, or we want to work with someone. And this was sort of, I wanted to work with the director so badly. I wanted to work with the choreographer. I wanted to do this role. I wanted to be a part of this magical show. And the callback process was so long and it was weeks and weeks and we didn't hear, and there was so much drama and rumors like floating around, and it just really added to the drama all around this, like the inevitable phone call saying that I booked it. And that was just, I think at that point, it was the most exciting job offer that I'd received. And I had been working in bars and struggling at this point for about 6 or 7 years at this point, just sort of not really breaking through. I hadn't booked a tour yet. Um, and it finally felt like something had paid off. It was an audition that I had gotten sort of on a whim. Um, and it's you're sometimes I think we're afraid to want a job so much because we know that the odds of us getting it are never 100%. And it was just, I wanted it so much.
And it worked out.
And it worked out.
I love it. Well, let's take a moment to talk about the present. What projects are you working on now? What are you looking forward to? And of course, we are amidst this crazy, wild time in a global pandemic. How do you see the entertainment industry moving forward in the next couple of years?
The question on everyone's mind.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll start by saying I'm doing a lot of creative projects on my own right now. I've sort of been toying with the idea of directing more and more. I dabbled a little bit in college and a little bit in post college. And I think that, I thought when we started going, we all started quarantining at the beginning of the pandemic. I was feeling a lot of pressure from other artists to sort of create your own content. I mean, I'm sure here we are doing this podcast that you created. And I think so many like amazing things have come out of it. But I really didn't want to give in to that. I really felt like, but I don't want to do my own work. That's not my job. I want to do other people's work. But there was nothing happening. Projects were sort of on hold. Everything was on pause. There were no auditions. So I started writing finally some of my own stuff. I'm making plans to shoot and direct a lot of that stuff. Most of it is short scenes or um, shorts for film. And in the process, I've been sending a lot of self tapes. I actually did a couple commercials and a couple voiceovers during this time remotely, which was a very interesting experience.
I can imagine.
Yeah. And I ended up booking a short film that's, you know, shoot date TBD. So we'll see how that goes. I know a lot of projects that were just pre production when all this happened sort of were moving forward as much as they could. So they would go forward in pre-production, they would cast it, and then now we're cast and we're waiting for like the okay go.
Yeah.
Um, I think in the next couple of years, I think it's really easy to sort of be pessimistic about the future of the industry. I know a fear that I have is that at least for TV, I mean, theater is going to be a while, but at least for TV film, they're starting to sort of find ways to resume production. One of the things they're talking about is smaller crews and smaller casts, which would eliminate a lot of those parts that I would could potentially get relatively easily. Well, all subjective. Um, and that's sort of frightening to me. It makes me feel like, well, then maybe the few parts that are available are going to go to A-list actors. That's sort of like the fears that I have. I think the other side of it is that this has sort of been a great equalizer. Now, that fear of sort of getting in the room is sort of gone because there is no room.
Yeah.
And we're all doing this virtually. We're all auditioning through self tapes and Zoom and Skype. And, casting directors are also sitting around without projects. They're also looking to work and looking forward to meeting people. And a lot of them have taken advantage of this time to meet people and search out new content. I think, I don't think that virtual content is the future. I think it can't be. I think we need that sort of person to person connection, whether it's two people on screen or one person in the audience and one person on the stage. I think we can't. I've seen a few of these like Zoom productions, Zoom readings. I don't know if you've seen any of those. They're very they're very strange, I find. I find it really
Yeah.
bizarre. So I hope that as an industry we're able to find something really inventive and exciting in the next couple of years. My hopes are high because we're all hungry for work. So we'll see what happens.
For sure. It is going to be a crazy new world moving forward.
Crazy new
That much I
world.
do know.
We just got
What
to
it looks
be
like?
ready for anything.
Exactly. Well, let's move on to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning Round. I
Woo.
am going to ask you a handful of questions, and I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Good. First question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entertainer?
Absolutely nothing. Except for that one time that I couldn't walk and couldn't talk. That was pretty sucky.
I, I mean, that's pretty huge. That's massive.
But
But I'm
aside from
glad that
that,
you've gone through it.
yes, that's it.
And the second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Oh, the best piece of advice I've ever received is give the people what they want so that you can open their eyes to what you're really made of.
Love that. Third question. What is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre COVID, what was working for you before our industry went on pause?
Finally, letting go of the box mentality and trying to fit in it and just really figuring out what I have to offer as an individual.
Love that. And the fourth question. What is the best resource, whether that is a book, a movie, a YouTube video, a podcast, maybe it's a piece of technology that you found is helping your career right now?
Ooh, mentors, other people, I would say, talking to people who are in the profession, talking to friends. There's no better way to move forward in your career than networking with those around you who inspire you and can create work with each other.
Absolutely. And the fifth question. If you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in the industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently or would you keep it the same?
My instinct was to say that I wanted to be a scientist, which is another career, another life. But I actually think that there's a lot there. I think that I would. I think that there's a link missing between the arts community and the science community that could be a bridge between a communication bridge between the average Joes and scientists and sort of communicating science. That is such a weird answer, but I'm sticking to it.
I love it. And the last question. What is the golden nugget knowledge drop you have learned from your successful career in the industry that you'd like to leave with everybody?
People just want to see other people. I think, especially as we've sort of gone through all this training and we've tried to do so many things a certain way or right, if I had just really understood the value of my own point of view and my own uniqueness early on, I think I wouldn't have gotten in my own way and sabotaged myself on a number of occasions with like self-conscious thoughts. So just hold firm in your thoughts and ideas. There's no such thing as a crazy idea,
That is amazing advice for everyone, new and old, in this industry.
new and old.
And to wrap up this interview, it is time for you to give yourself a plug. Where can we
Ooh.
find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
They listeners, hello. You can connect with me either directly through my website, which is hannahjanemcmurray.com. You can also find me on Instagram at HJMcMurray. Those are basically the only forms of social media that I interact with. And actually, if you do follow me on Instagram, I will be starting soon. I'll be using my page to promote some new science facts that I really love, just for a fun, like daily dose of knowledge. I'll be promoting this new short film that I'm working on that's called Breakfast at the Bodega, hopefully starting production at the end of next month.
Fantastic. Hannah, it was so wonderful to have you on. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a delight.
Give it up for our 5-star reviewers, Freya48, Tucker 5678, and S-Wags. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for joining us today. My one call to action for you is to go to youbookeditpodcast.com and join our free email community, where we dig deep into a continually growing resource of truly actionable things you can be doing right now to help you advance your entertainment career. Don't miss an episode. We have a new guest 7 days a week. Search for You Booked It on Apple Podcast or your favorite podcast app and subscribe today. All the best to you. We'll see you tomorrow.